The silence of the house at midnight has a weight to it, a heaviness that usually brought me peace. My name is Elena, and for 18 years, that silence was the sound of my own discipline. It was the sound of double shifts at the hospital, of holidays spent scrubbing floors instead of opening presents, of shoes glued back together because a new pair meant $50 less in the account. Everything I did, every hunger pang I ignored, was funneled into one singular digital vault, the college fund for my daughter, Lily, $199,000. That number wasn't just currency to me, it was a monument. It was the physical proof that I, a single mother who had been written off by the world, had beaten the odds. Then came the Tuesday that shattered my reality. I sat at my kitchen island, the morning sun casting long, deceptive shadows across the granite, and opened my banking app. I expected the routine dopamine hit of seeing that six-figure sum, the safety net that promised Lily a life I never had. Instead, the screen refreshed, and the floor seemed to liquefy beneath my stool. The balance read 0. Not a glitch, not a pending hold, 0. A precise, absolute nothingness. I clicked on the transaction history, my breath hitching in a throat that suddenly felt lined with sandpaper. 1 transaction, 1 withdrawal. Authorized user, Victoria. My mother. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The shock was too total for that. I simply got into my car, my hands gripping the steering wheel with a force that turned my knuckles into bleached bone, and drove. I drove to the house where I had grown up, the house where I had naively trusted my mother with a joint account opened when I was barely 19, a relic of a time when I thought she was my protector. When I walked into her living room, the air smelled of lavender and old dust, a scent that used to mean safety but now smelled like deceit. She was sitting in her armchair, reading a magazine, looking for all the world like a woman with a clean conscience. "Where is it?" I asked. My voice was low, terrifyingly calm. "Where is Lily's future?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even look up immediately. When she did, there was a glint of amusement in her eyes, a casual cruelty that took my breath away. "Oh, stop being dramatic, Elena," she said, flipping a page. "And you can thank me, by the way. I've finally secured the venue for Sophie's wedding. It's going to be a fairy tale." The room spun. You took $200,000 for a party?" She laughed then. It was a dry, brittle sound. "I reallocated family resources. Sophie deserves this. She's the baby. And let's be honest, Elena, you've always been the sturdy one. You'll figure it out. You always do." Then she delivered the final blow, casual as a weather report. "Oh, and don't bother clearing your schedule for the wedding. It's a small, intimate affair. We decided it would be less awkward if you weren't there. You understand." I smiled. It was a rictus of pure agony, a mask to keep my soul from spilling out on her carpet. "Sure," I whispered, the word tasting like ash. "I understand perfectly." I walked out, the door clicking shut on the life I thought I knew. As I reached my car, the vibration of my phone against my thigh startled me. It was my father, Thomas. I answered, expecting a defense, a justification. Instead, I heard the broken, jagged sound of a man weeping. "Elena," he choked out, his voice thick with tears. "I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know she'd actually do it." That was the moment the sadness calcified into something harder, something sharper. This wasn't just about money. This was about a lifetime of dynamics, of secrets, of a family hierarchy where I was the fuel and they were the fire. I sat in that driveway, listening to my father sob, and I realized that the time for being the sturdy one was over. The time for war had begun. "Dad," I said, cutting through his grief, "did you sign off on this?" "No," he wheezed. "She handles the accounts. She said she was moving funds around. She said you agreed to help Sophie. She said you wanted to contribute." "I see," I said. The betrayal was absolute. My mother hadn't just stolen, she had rewritten reality to make me a willing participant in my own destruction. "Dad, I need you to listen to me. I am going to fix this, but things are going to get ugly. Are you ready for that?" His silence was long, heavy with the weight of 30 years of enabling. Finally, he whispered, "Do what you have to do." I drove home in a fugue state, the landscape blurring into streaks of green and gray. When I walked into my house, the silence was no longer peaceful. It was waiting. I sat at my dining table and opened my laptop. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I became a forensic accountant of my own life. I pulled 18 years of bank statements. I found the emails from 2005 where I explicitly stated, "This deposit is for Lily's tuition." I found the text messages where my mother acknowledged the fund's purpose. I built a timeline, a paper trail, a fortress of evidence. The next morning, I went to work at the hospital, moving through the corridors like a ghost. I intubated patients, I checked charts, I smiled at families, all while a cold fire burned in my gut. I was counting down the minutes until I could see Mark.
And the element of surprise is a tactical advantage you should not waste. The hardest part was telling Lily. She was 18, bright-eyed, on the cusp of everything. She came into the kitchen that night holding an acceptance letter from her dream university, her face glowing. "Mom, look, I got into state." I felt my heart physically fracture. I sat her down, I held her hands, and I told her the truth. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her that her grandmother had taken the money. All of it. Lily didn't scream. She went very quiet. She looked down at her hands, then at the letter. "So, I can't go?" she whispered. "We are fighting it," I promised, fierce and desperate. "I will sell the car. I will work 3 jobs. You are going. But right now, the money is gone." Lily looked up, and I saw her childhood die in her eyes. "She chose Sophie's flowers over my education?" she asked, her voice trembling. "She really hates us that much?" "No," I said, pulling her into my arms. "She loves herself that much. There is a difference." That night, Lily didn't cry. She sat with me at the table, organizing the receipts. "We're going to get them, Mom," she said, her young face set in stone. "We're going to burn their house down." Metaphorically. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a masterclass in psychological warfare. I went dark. I blocked my mother, my sister Sophie, and the flying monkeys, the aunts and cousins who sent probing texts like, "Is it true you're suing your mom?" I didn't respond. I let the silence terrify them. Meanwhile, Mark and I were busy. We contacted the wedding vendors. It's amazing what you can get if you call a caterer, claim to be the financial coordinator for the bride's mother, and ask for a copy of the latest invoice for tax purposes. We got the paper trail. We matched the withdrawal date to the deposit dates for the venue, the florist, the designer dress shop. Then the golden goose landed. My father, functioning as a double agent inside the house, forwarded me an email chain he found on the shared iPad. It was from my mother to Sophie. "Don't worry about the budget for the ice sculpture, darling. Your sister's little nest egg is finally serving a higher purpose. Consider it a donation to the family image." I printed it. I laminated it. It was the nail in the coffin. The day of the wedding arrived with a sky the color of a bruise. I dressed with military precision. No black. That would look like mourning. I wore a deep crimson dress, tailored, sharp. I looked like blood in the water. Mark drove. We pulled up to the venue, a sprawling estate that screamed new money. Security was light. Why would they need it? They thought the problem had been discarded. My father met us at the side entrance. He looked 10 years older than he had a month ago. "They're at the reception," he whispered. "Speeches are starting in 5 minutes. Elena, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. "I'm not here to ruin a wedding, Dad. I'm here to return a robbery." We walked in. The reception hall was a kaleidoscope of crystals, white roses, and self-congratulation. My mother sat at the head table, holding court, looking like the queen of a kingdom built on sand. Sophie was laughing, her head thrown back, oblivious to the cost of her joy. We stayed in the shadows until the DJ lowered the music. "And now," he announced, "if anyone else wants to share a few words of love for the happy couple." The silence that followed was polite, expectant. I stepped into it. I walked down the center aisle, the click of my heels echoing on the marble floor. The sound cut through the room like a gunshot. Heads turned, whispers ignited like brushfire. My mother saw me first. Her smile didn't just fade,
It disintegrated. She stood up, knocking her champagne flute over. "Elena," she hissed, her voice projecting despite her attempt to keep it low. "What are you doing here? You are not invited." I reached the microphone stand before anyone could stop me. I took the mic, the cold metal grounding me. "I know," I said, my voice amplified, filling every corner of the room. "But since I paid for this event, I thought I should at least get a toast." The room went deathly silent. You could hear the ice melting in the buckets. "Elena, get out," Sophie shrieked, standing up. "You're ruining my day." "Your day," I said, turning to face her, "cost $199,000. Does anyone want to know where that money came from?" "Security!" my mother screamed, pointing a shaken finger at me. "I wouldn't," I said calmly. I pulled the folder from my bag. "Because if security drags me out, I hand this file to the police officers waiting in the parking lot. This is a bank statement showing the unauthorized withdrawal of a college fund meant for my daughter, Lily. It was taken by Victoria on the 12th of last month." I held up the next page. "And this is the invoice from this venue, paid 2 days later with those exact funds." I turned to the groom, David, who looked like he was about to vomit. "David, did you know your wedding is a crime scene? Did you know you're eating catering paid for by stealing the future of an 18-year-old girl?" David stood up, his face gray. He looked at Sophie. "Is this true?" "It's family money," Sophie cried, crying the tears of the exposed. "Mom said she handled it."
And here, I said, pulling out the laminated email, the final dagger. "Here is where our mother calls my daughter's education a little nest egg, finally serving a higher purpose. A higher purpose, an ice sculpture." I looked at the crowd. The judgment was palpable. It wasn't just shock, it was disgust. The veneer of respectability my mother had spent decades polishing was cracking, falling away in chunks. "I am filing a lawsuit tomorrow morning," I announced, my voice steady, devoid of the shaking rage I felt inside. "But I wanted to give you all a chance to see exactly who you are celebrating. Enjoy the cake. It cost my daughter her freshman year." I dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a thud that felt like a gavel striking a block. I turned and walked out. I didn't run. I didn't look back at the chaos erupting behind me, the shouting, the sobbing, the sound of David demanding answers from my mother. I walked out into the cool night air, where Mark and Lily were waiting. Lily ran to me, burying her face in my shoulder. "Did you do it?" "It's done," I whispered into her hair. "Everyone knows." The fallout was swift and brutal. My mother's reputation didn't just suffer, it was annihilated. In our community, theft is bad, but stealing from a grandchild? That is a mortal sin. She was pariahed within the week. The lawsuit never went to trial. Faced with a mountain of evidence and the humiliation of the wedding revelation, my mother's lawyer advised her to settle immediately. But she didn't have the cash. She'd spent it all. So the house went on the market, the house she had lorded over us for years, the symbol of her status. It was sold to pay back the debt. David, to his credit, annulled the marriage. He was a finance guy. He knew he couldn't build a life with a family that treated fraud as a reallocation of resources. Sophie was left with a dress she couldn't wear and a husband who looked at her with pity and revulsion. My father moved into a small apartment. He is learning, slowly, how to be a man who speaks up. We are working on it. And Lily? 6 months later, I stood on the campus green of the State University. The autumn leaves were turning gold and crimson. Lily was holding a stack of books, looking like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. The restitution checks had started clearing. The tuition was paid. "Mom," she said, looking at the library tower, "do you think she misses us?" "I think she misses the control," I said honestly. "I think she misses the money. But she never really saw us, Lily. You can't miss people you never truly saw." Lily nodded, then smiled, a real smile, unburdened by the shadow of the past. "I'm glad you fought," she said, "not just for the money, but because you didn't let her win." I watched her walk away toward her dorm, her step light, her future reclaiming its shape.
I used to think that love was about endurance, about how much you could suffer for your family. I was wrong. Love is about protection. It is about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this far and no further. It is about burning down the falsehoods to save the truth. My mother has her empty pride. My sister has her memories of a tainted wedding. But I have this. The silence in my house is no longer heavy. It is light. It is free. And my daughter is exactly where she is supposed to be. If this story made your blood boil, if you've ever had to stand up to family to protect what's right, or if you just believe that justice is a dish best served publicly, do not simply scroll past. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications. Join us. Because here, we don't let the secrets stay buried. We expose them. Share this story if you believe no child's future should be the price of a parent's vanity. I'll see you in the next one.